All right, so we're talking about perspective, and perspective is the way that we view things. It's the way that we look at things and the way we see things. Now, this actually isn't part of what I prepared for tonight, but I think it would be a mistake if I didn't comment on it. I am the only male in this room tonight, and I'm a leader. Okay? I am. And I think it's important that you guys hear this right now, because as somebody who grew up in a single mom house, I only had one parent. I only knew my mom. I never met my dad, and he passed away, so I never will. As somebody who has 3 daughters, yes, I do have 5 kids, but 3 of them are female. A lot of times, who speaks? But in general, who's a speaker normally? It's a guy, right? Interesting. But that's been a thing for how long? That's okay. There are some smart men. There are also some very smart women. And I think that sitting in this room where a lot of people your age tonight might have something that they would consider to be more important or more worthy of their time. Now, some of you are forced to come here by your parents, but I think for most of you, you choose to be here, and that says something. And I don't think anything happens just for random reasons. I don't think that my son didn't want to come tonight because he was tired. I don't think that happened for a reason. I think the reason is because this talk, and even though the character in this talk is going to be a dude, it's going to apply to you guys. And perspective is hugely important, especially with everything we're seeing right now. The world is crazy. Everyone's crazy. You can have a talk about the same thing. I can show... Are you guys old enough to remember there was a picture of a dress and everybody saw the dress differently? To some people, the dress was purple. And see, this wasn't part of my talk, or I would have had the picture. To some people, it was gold. And actually, I think... Right? And if you saw it right, I think it wasn't either of those colors, actually. And it was only a very small portion of the planet who could see the color right? So perspective. But because to me, I want to say it was purple. I think that's the color. Blue or black? Okay, I saw the blue and black. I didn't see the white and gray. I've looked at it a million different times. I never saw it.
I remember the shoe.
The shoe. There's been a bunch of them, and it's all about the way that it's way it's captured and the way that... Okay, now I'm going to get on track with my talk for you guys. And I want you guys to stick with me. Yes, please talk. If you have questions, is it about the dress or the shoe?
No.
Then put your hand up, because I know it's...
I'm just asking, when are we ever going to hear Micah's poem?
Micah's poem, that's going to be in 2 weeks. She's going to have a poem for us. I'll talk to your mom, so you're going to have to do it. It's so good. Okay, so what I was thinking about with this is that you guys ever, I don't know, somebody tell me some of your favorite foods.
My dad's homemade chicken nuggets.
Homemade chicken nuggets.
Oh, those are good.
Okay, so chicken, right? Makes sense. We eat chicken. Now, have you've all seen a chicken, right?
No.
You've never seen a chicken in real life? Absolutely, you have. Have you ever seen a chicken with all of its feathers and its beak and gone, man, I really want to eat that? No. That looks like some...
Because it makes me feel so bad that I'm eating an animal. But at the same time,
but they don't...
it tastes good.
Well, I like steak. I really like steak. I never look at a cow and go, that's delicious. Now, and obviously people have different reasons for what to eat, but my favorite food... Thanks, Madison. 100% that is my favorite food. You guys know... You can't? Really?
I'm gluten-free.
Well, but gluten-free... There is gluten-free bread.
But it doesn't taste good.
It doesn't. So then... So now you already hate me because I love bread. Caitlin, I apologize. Okay, but stick with me though, okay? So, bread. There's this crazy diet called keto where you don't eat carbs in bread.
Yeah.
Wow, I would rather be fat. Because I love bread that much. Okay, but here's the thing about bread. You don't just go out, you can't go walk in the street and go, oh my gosh, there's a loaf of bread growing naturally. The bread tree magically sprouted a loaf of bread, right? Anybody know how you make bread?
Yeah.
Some of you guys do. Okay. What?
Water, flour, something else. Don't you need some yeast?
You need yeast.
Yeah.
What else?
That's what she said.
Okay.
Don't you
So
need eggs?
no, for some bread you do, but not most. The most basic bread recipe that I could find was flour, a little bit of sugar, yeast, water, and salt. Somebody at some point was sitting in their kitchen and said, I have flour, and I have water, and I have this weird living thing called yeast, and I have a little bit of sugar. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna mix them all together, and you know what? No. Next move, I'm gonna bake it. I'm gonna throw it on fire. How do you come up with that? How do you see those things and come up with that, right? Because now we all know what bread is. We all have our favorite food, and it makes sense, but a lot of our favorite foods, who thought about deep frying anything? Right? If you go to the fair, they will literally deep fry everything. A deep fried Oreo is amazing. Who thought of that? Because no normal person sits there and says, hey, you know what? Now that I can explain. Maybe it fell in on accident. That could totally be why, right? Somebody sat there and went, I'm going to mix these things. Now, you bake bread, okay? Now, if you want my second favorite food, it's actually that one. Toast. So somebody thought that I am going to mix these ingredients together. I'm going to burn them over fire. And then the next guy said, you know what would be cool? If we burn it again. And then we threw butter on it. Perspective. Because some people see things like that. I know people that, I'm not a big car guy. People ask me about my car and I say it turns on. When it doesn't turn on, I get really worried. And then I call somebody. But I have people who are like, this car and those specs. And I'm like, I don't get it. Because my perspective is different. Now, if you want to talk about phones or you want to talk about some computing stuff, I'm totally into that. You want to talk about guitars, I see that. But it depends on how you look on it. And that's the way you're going to see it. So, we're at church, so we're obviously not just talking about bread, even though all of us except Kaylin are very hungry now. Right? No?
I'm so hungry.
For gluten-free bread that doesn't taste terrible.
Yeah.
You know what? I work at a grocery store. I'm going to find one that doesn't taste terrible.
Don't you work at Sprouts?
I do.
Yeah, the bread that I found that's actually doesn't taste like starch is there. It's good.
We have stuff like that. We're pretty good. Shop at Sprouts. There's my commercial for the
Sprouts
night.
is my favorite food.
So here's the thing. We do a lot of things that make sense every day. Okay, we get up, we brush our teeth because we don't want our teeth to rot out of our faces. We shower. We do our hair, especially me with this hair because I want to look nice and I don't want to smell. Okay, we do other things. What other things do you do every day that just make sense? Give me some examples.
Get
You
dressed.
put clothes on.
Put clothes on.
Wake up.
You wake up. Well, yeah, that helps. You shower. You tie your shoes so the shoelaces don't just hang out.
You brush your teeth and put on deodorant.
Yes, so you don't smell. These are all things we do, and they all have a purpose that makes sense. Nobody wants to smell bad. Nobody wants to fall on their face. Nobody wants to go walk outside and go, oh my gosh, I'm naked. This happened. Like, these are all things that we try to avoid.
They did, but they didn't really know.
Well, but we're in a different... Okay, you know what, Hallie? I need you to bring your theology down a little bit right now, okay? Thank you, okay? But what we're doing and what we're going to tell you about during this series and every series is you worship an invisible God who is not just invisible, but he is right now. You see him?
Yeah, he's right there.
You see him right there?
No, I don't.
But you know he's there, right?
Yeah.
But you know he's there. That doesn't make sense. When you pray, you know that this God hears your words and doesn't just hear them, he responds to them. He knows that when you sing songs, even if you do sound like a sick cat, he loves that you are singing to him. None of this makes sense unless you shift your perspective. That was so good, Josh. Anyways, here we go. So I'm actually not going to read any of this out of the Bible. And you know why? Because you're responsible and you're going to read it. It's going to be in Judges 6 and it's in Judges 7. You're going to read it. Judges 6, Judges 7. Where is it at in the Bible? Someone else tell me too, so I know you're hearing me.
Judges 6,
Because honestly, just so you know, I'm not going to lie to you, but you still shouldn't just trust everything that comes out of my mouth either.
Yeah.
You should double check everything because you know what? I want you to own it too. See, I own it and it makes sense to me, but it needs to make sense to you as well. Got it? So, if you read your Bible, especially the Old Testament, there is a common theme that continues to happen over and over again. The Israelites end up in trouble. Sometimes because they're dumb, sometimes because other people are dumb. God shows up, trust me, it's in there over and over again, and he saves them. Then what happens is, after they're saved, they're like, everything's awesome. And as time goes on, they forget about the God who saved them over and over and over again, which hurts God's feelings. And God gets mad, and that is the right word. He gets mad. And as depending on which season you are in the Bible and how far away from him they get, they end up back in trouble until God comes and saves them again after they remember what he had done for them already. So, really easy lesson. If you just don't forget what God's done for you, you're probably going to be okay. Okay? If it was just that easy, we probably wouldn't have a Bible because it would have ended in Genesis 2. So, in Judges, what you have is you have a group of people called the Midianites. And the Midianites are not nice. They're very mean, and they are not nice to the Israelites. They're very mean to them. The Israelites had forgotten, once again, what God had done for them. He had forgotten how they had saved them from Egypt and everything that happened after that until this point. And this is all the way through when they get up in the Promised Land. They've had all these promises. God's been very good to them. Oh, just kidding. I forgot about God again. Woohoo! And God's like, cool, if you're going to forget about me, then I'm not going to help you out right now because you obviously don't remember. So the Midianites come in, and they're not nice to them. So there is a dude in the Old Testament named Gideon. Gideon is cool. Gideon's most famous story, you ladies will probably discuss in your small group because I'm not even going to talk about that one tonight. We're going to skip it on purpose because I want to. So Gideon is out literally making wine. He's trying to finish making wine and get it put away before the Midianites come and take it from him. So he's trying to very quickly crush a bunch of grapes, put them in bottles, get it all taken away because he doesn't want to have to share with these mean people who basically punk the Israelites over and over and over again.
Doesn't the wine have to sit for like 5 years or something?
This would not technically be the wine that you're thinking about. This would technically be a grape juice that's slightly fermented. So this is not like I'm drunk. This is like, this tastes like a little bit different than grape juice. Like we could all drink it here together. Like it's that kind of drink. It's not a drink that would be like, oh, you got to show me your ID. And you don't have an ID, so you're already not in. So while he's doing this, an angel of the Lord literally shows up and says, Gideon, my dude, my guy, the Lord is with you. And then he calls him a mighty warrior. Okay, so Gideon is hanging out. He's trying to make, it doesn't even matter that it's wine. He's trying to make his thing so he can hide it, so he doesn't have to share it because he's tired of, it's like the bully who comes and takes the lunch money. He knows he's coming. So he's got to spend the lunch money before the bully takes the lunch money. Now, none of you have ever dealt with a bully, I'm sure. I have. They're mean and they smell bad. I figured some of you would have. I was kidding. Not you. I will hurt them. Anyways, so this angel shows up and this angel tells Gideon, dude, like, you're this mighty warrior. God's with you. And Gideon literally goes, what? Like, they're literally going to come and they're going to take my Kool-Aid. They take all of our stuff. They take everything. Whatever it is you like, put it in that context, they come and take it. They're going to come take my phone. They're going to come take my computer. They're going to take my time with my friends. Whatever it is, they are going to take it and they're going to own it and I can't have it. So, what's up? And Gideon does remember because he tells this angel, he's like, I know the stories. I know that I've been told that God has saved my people from the Egyptians and all these other things, but like, where is that right now? Like right now, we're suffering, we're being taken advantage of, right? So, okay, let's see up here. Covered all of that, cool. So the angel basically tells him, okay, cool. It's cool you remember. Obviously, this is bad. So what you're going to do is you're going to go save your whole country. You're going to save them. Right? So how does Gideon respond? Right? He obviously says, okay, I'm going to go save them, right? Nope. He says, yeah, I really don't. What is wrong with you? Like, you're not seeing what I'm up against? Like, none of this makes any kind of sense. How am I going to do that? So the angel says, okay, I get it. You're a little bit worried. So we're going to work something out. So Gideon, being a smart man, says, smart person, because his sex doesn't matter right now, says, you know what? Like, let me have a night. Don't leave. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to pray about this and I'm going to think about this and then I'm going to bring back a sacrifice because Old Testament, we're still burning sacrifices, right? But you guys know about that? Before Jesus took our sin, someone else had to in that moment symbolically. So that's why those poor sheep and lots of good food were lit on fire, Ava. That's why those things happen, okay? So he goes and just because I'm really good when I come up with these talks for you guys, guess what he goes home and makes? He makes bread. Come on. That's, okay, whatever. Christina, I need you to be a little more into this, okay? Thank you! He didn't make a pig because he knew it was your favorite animal. Instead, he prepared a stew with some goat and he made some bread.
Why not stew?
So, what?
Why did they make stew with goat?
Because goats were considered a clean animal, and they had a ton of them. So it would be like the way that we have cows and chickens. They had goats for days. So it would be the most common thing you would make because you had a ton of them.
So it would be like... okay, yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so he goes and he makes his stuff and he brings it back and he puts it down and he's going to basically light it on fire. That's what he's going to do. That's how you do a sacrifice, right? So he made something. He made this bread, which would have been special to him. He prepared this food. He was going to offer it to God. And the angel goes, you know what? Before you do that and you lay it there, you should pour this extra broth that you brought with you all over the top of it too, so it's really wet. Okay. So he does, and then the angel touches it, and it lights on fire, and it's a giant flame, and Gideon's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I'm seeing this mighty act of God. Okay. So he does that. He's still not really sold, though, that he should go save his whole country, and he's a little bit scared. After that, he goes through some things, and that's the part that comes after. There's some more tests where not only does he say, God, I really want to make sure this is real, God flat out tells him, I want you to know it's real. So he's not just pushing his buttons to see if he'll show off. He's actually testing it to make sure it's right. So that's that part. He does some other stuff. God convinces him. Now we're going to... Yes?
Same story where he puts like this piece outside of
Yes, stop.
that one?
Stop! Because you talk about it in small groups. Small group.
I'm just trying to
Group.
connect the dots.
Yep, that's Gideon, okay? The fleece, we'll talk about it. It's good, too. So here's the part about this that's crazy. And this is where perspective comes in. And what I'm encouraging you guys to do tonight, as you hear the rest of this, is that sometimes we have to change completely how we look at things. So, the Midianites were a giant country. They probably had hundreds of thousands of soldiers. The Israelite army was 32,000 people. 32,000 is a lot. If you're going against like 200 to 500,000, it's not that much. Well, take it down. 32 people trying to fight 100. It's not very good. Trying to fight a couple hundred. It's probably not going to end very well for you, right? Right? Okay, so... that's right. So this morning, where Gideon is getting ready to go into battle, he's saying his prayer, and God says, you have too many people. And Gideon says, no, I don't. I don't have enough people. And God says, no, you actually have way too many. And Gideon does they have like, let's say they have 200,000 people. I have 32,000. This is not going to end well. And God's like, you're right. You need less. You're not going to win that argument. So God tells him, you ask anybody who is too scared to fight, that you tell them they can go home. So Gideon, in front of his 32,000 soldiers, says, if any of you in this tiny army see that giant army and you're scared, you can go home. 22,000 of them leave. They're like, oh, yeah, yep, you're on your own, buddy. Pound it, I'm out. So now you have hundreds of thousands of people and you have 10,000 Israelites. So Gideon's going, wow, this is okay, but still like 10,000. So God does that thing where he goes, yeah, Gideon, not enough of them left. You still have too many. Wait, what? I went from 32,000 down to 10,000, and you want me to fight that giant army? How does this make sense? And he goes, okay, look, so you have too many, so you got to get rid of them. And Gideon, being smart and not wanting to piss off God, says, okay, so, and I actually found that I had read this next part wrong for a very long time. He takes the remaining 10,000 and they go down to a stream of water. Now, if you are going to go and you are... Okay, I'm trying to think about the best way to put this. So, Animal Channel. Any of you guys watch Animal Channel? National Geographic. When the animals go down to drink, the lions especially, they don't just shove their face in the water, right? Because there's other animals around. So they get down and they have their mouth in the water, but they have their eyes like this. Okay? Why?
Watch out.
To make sure they're not attacked. So as a human, as us, if we were to go down there and we were going to be smart because we could be in danger, we don't just shove our head in the water. We're going to use our hands, pre-COVID-19, and we're going to drink like this and keep an eye out, right? Out of those 10,000, 300 of those men stuck their faces in the water. Okay? So if you're like me, I'm thinking, I don't want them around me because they're dumb. Nope. What God actually said is, the ones who shove their face in the water, I like those guys. You keep them. The rest? So somebody do the math. If you're going to go from 10,000 to 300, how many did you just lose?
9,700.
Correct. 9,700 more people. Now, maybe if you're dumb enough to drink like that, you're dumb enough to stay in that fight. Because at that point, I'm going, okay, God, okay, look, really? Like, you're going to do the lightning thing? I don't know. Whatever. So, you have Gideon and 300. That is 301 people going to fight hundreds of thousands. Now, God, because he's good, he knows that this is not going to be something that Gideon is just going to be okay with. So, he tells Gideon, what you need to do is you need to go, you take a couple of your men, you're going to go sneak in and you're going to listen to the way they're talking. So he does, and they sneak in, and he overhears these Midianite soldiers talking about a dream they had. And in this dream, they saw the Israelites coming at them like a giant loaf of... It's so good! A giant loaf of bread literally rolling on them and crushing them. So Gideon's like, dude, okay, so like... Huh? No. They had unleavened bread that would rise too. Both. That is the thing, but they had both. So, Gideon in that moment realizes that I made a loaf of bread that God literally lit on fire because fire's cool. They're dreaming about bread. And like thousands of years after this, Josh is going to be preaching with the example of bread. These things all come together for a reason, and he feels confident. Yeah, trust me, he knew about tonight, and he was like, Josh, you're cool. So, none of you agree with that. So, after hearing this, he's like, you know what? There's too much going on. God, I know you're in control. So, the part about this that's crazy is that, obviously, 300 are not going to go fight hundreds of thousands full on. What they did is, they snuck in at night, and they brought a bunch of jars, and they brought trumpets, and as they were spread out through this giant camp, they started smashing and breaking and blowing trumpets. And before then, they did this thing where they put out all the torches so it's pitch black. So in the middle of the night, all of these Midianite soldiers are suddenly woken up to these crazy loud noises. We're being attacked. So what do? They grab their swords. They grab their, I don't know what else they had. They grabbed their sticks. They grabbed their shoes because they didn't know what was happening. And they literally ran out and killed each other. Because it was dark and they were so scared and panicked that the noise made by 300 was enough to startle hundreds of thousands into killing themselves. Now, if I told you up front, you can beat 200,000 people with 300. No, you can't. That doesn't make sense in any way, shape, or form. When you have a different perspective and you start to see, because you know what would have happened if 32,000 of them tried to do that? They're not sneaking in. They're getting caught. You know what would have happened if just the 10,000 went in there? Some of those soldiers would have thought they were too smart and they would have come up with their own plans. He took the bottom Not because they were stupid or dumb, but because there was a weird trust there. And they were going to follow. And trust me, the right word there is weird. A weird trust where they were going to follow them in to see it through. And that was God's plan from the beginning. So, we get to read this story. We get to see it on this side. And it makes sense because, oh my gosh, you really could sneak in there and you could confuse them and you could do that, right? Right? But if you saw that from the other side, none of it makes sense. And so, the whole point of this, just like if you have some random ingredients like water and flour and sugar and yeast and a little bit of salt, none of those things make sense together. If you're a baker, now they do, obviously, but those things don't make sense. The craziest thing I've ever had food-wise was Chinese food in a tortilla. It's called koji tacos. It's stupid how good it is. That does not make sense. Somebody who had a different perspective on food was able to see that, and they were able to put those together. I mean, anything in a tortilla is probably going to be good, but I don't think Chinese food and tacos, right? But they were able to put that together, and I want to eat that. I want to enjoy that all the time. So, where do we go with this from here? I don't know where you guys are exactly at right now. I don't know what you're dealing with. I don't know how life looks for you. I know that life looks different because you didn't get to finish your school year. You have not had the summers that you thought you were going to have. You have not been able to even have the youth group experience because we had to do it on a Zoom chat for a while. But what if I told you that the same God who allows us to question, like Gideon did, is faithful to respond, who has a plan that's better than the plans that we can imagine? What if we're working through that same kind of thing right now? And what if that's what he's doing with each of you? And I think that the part about this that I didn't plan up front, but I think is important, is that I'm like super impressed. I'm super proud that this group, you guys are a group of women. You stand up for what you believe in. You show up every week because you guys have been it. Right? I mean, we had some high schoolers who have to have their own night, whatever. We don't need them. They all smell bad anyway, especially the boys. Thanks. You graduated. You're out. Yeah, it's true. Oh, swerve. So, yeah. So what I'd like to do right now is we'll finish with worship, and then we're going to have small group time. But before we do that, I'd like to close us out with prayer. And I'm going to actually, because I recorded that,